Lyra's wings trembled as she pressed herself against the cold metal wall of Waypoint 7. The trading station stretched in every direction, a maze of corridors filled with species she had only seen in textbooks back home. Her compound eyes tracked the movement of dozens of aliens passing by, most of them twice her size or bigger. The Mothran people were not built for places like this. Their bodies were delicate, their frames light enough to float on gentle winds back on their homeworld. Here, among the pushing crowds and harsh artificial lights, Lyra felt like a leaf caught in a storm. She had been traveling for 3 days now, making her way to the outer colonies where her family waited. They had left months ago to find work, and she had stayed behind to finish her studies. Now she was alone, carrying only a small pack and the ration tokens her mother had carefully counted out before saying goodbye. Those tokens were supposed to last the entire journey. They were supposed to keep her fed and hydrated until she reached the colony transport on the far side of the station, but they were gone now. Stolen in the crush of bodies near the main marketplace, plucked from her bag by fingers she never saw. She had reported the theft to station security, but the Vreldnik's officer had barely looked at her before waving her away. Small species problems were not worth their time, not in the outer rings where the only law was strength. That had been 6 hours ago, maybe 7. Lyra was losing track of time as her body began to fail. The Mothran needed water more frequently than most species. Their metabolism burned hot, keeping their wings ready for flight, and without regular hydration, their organs would start to shut down. She could feel it happening already. Her mouth was dry, her thoughts growing fuzzy at the edges. The shimmer of her wings had dulled to a flat gray. She needed water soon or she would not make it to the transport at all. The water dispensary was only 20 meters away. She could see it clearly. A public fountain built into the wall where travelers could refill their containers. All it required was a token or a few galactic credits. Lyra had neither. She had tried asking other travelers for help, but most ignored her completely. A few had laughed. One had suggested she sell her belongings if she wanted to drink, as if her tiny pack contained anything of value. Lyra pushed herself away from the wall and walked toward the fountain on unsteady legs. Maybe someone had left a cup behind. Maybe there would be a few drops she could catch. It was a foolish hope, but hope was all she had left. The fountain area was crowded with a group of Hrangtal mercenaries. Lyra recognized their species from the gray, thick skin and the twin horns that curved from their skulls. They were loud, their deep voices echoing off the metal walls as they shoved each other and laughed. Their kind were known throughout the galaxy as hired muscle, the ones you called when you needed someone intimidated or hurt. They feared nothing because few species could match their strength. Lyra's first instinct was to turn around and leave, but her body would not let her. She needed water now. Waiting another hour might kill her. She approached slowly, keeping her head down and her wings folded tight against her back. The Mothran had learned long ago that making themselves small sometimes helped them avoid notice. She moved along the edge of the group, trying to reach the dispenser without getting in anyone's way. She almost made it. Her hand was reaching for the button when a massive gray arm blocked her path. "Where do you think you're going, little bug?" Lyra looked up into the face of the largest Hrangtal, the one the others seemed to defer to. His name was Grunt, she heard the others call him that. His eyes were small and mean, and his mouth split into a grin that showed too many teeth. "I need water," Lyra said quietly. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Please, I just need a little water. You got tokens?" Grunt asked, though his tone made it clear he already knew the answer. "They were stolen. I have nothing, but I will die without water. My species cannot go long without—" "Not my problem, bug." Grunt leaned against the dispenser, blocking it completely with his bulk. "This is our spot. We claimed it. You want water, you go find another fountain." "There are no other fountains in this sector," Lyra said. Her vision was starting to blur at the edges. "Please, I am begging you." "Just a few drops." Grunt looked at his companions and laughed. They laughed with him, the sound booming through the corridor. Other species passing by glanced over but kept walking. Nobody wanted to get involved with Hrangtal business. "A few drops," she says. Grunt reached over and pressed the button on the dispenser. Clean water poured out in a stream. He did not bring a cup to catch it. He just let it flow, splashing onto the floor and running away into the drainage grates. "Oops, looks like I wasted it. Guess you should have been faster." Lyra felt something break inside her chest. Not her body, though that was failing too. Something deeper. The last bit of hope she had been carrying shattered like glass. Her legs gave out and she collapsed onto the floor near the fountain. The metal was cold and wet from the spilled water, so close but impossible to reach. The Rangtal kept laughing. Someone in the crowd said something about weak species not belonging in the outer stations. Lyra closed her eyes. Her mother's face appeared in her mind, smiling and warm. She wondered if her family would ever find out what happened to her, or if she would just become another missing person in the station records. She heard footsteps approaching, heavier than the Rangtal but different somehow, more controlled. A shadow fell over her, blocking the harsh lights. "Hey," a new voice said. It spoke in Galactic Common, but the accent was unfamiliar. "Can you hear me?" Lyra managed to open her eyes. She saw a figure kneeling beside her, smaller than the Rangtal but built solid. 2 legs, 2 arms, no tail or wings. Smooth skin in a brown tone she had never seen before. The face was strange but not frightening. The eyes were soft. "You need water," the figure said. It was not a question. Lyra tried to nod but could barely move her head. The figure unscrewed something from a belt, a metal container. Lyra heard liquid sloshing inside. The stranger's hand, warm and careful, lifted her head from the cold floor. "Small sips," the stranger said gently. "Take it slow." Water touched Lyra's lips, cool and clean and real. She drank, and for the first time in hours she felt like she might actually survive. Daniel Ortega had seen enough suffering in his 32 years to recognize it instantly. The small alien on the floor was dying. Anyone with medical training could see that. Her breathing was shallow and rapid. Her skin had lost its color and her body had gone limp in that particular way that meant organ systems were starting to fail. He had seen the same signs back on Earth during his years as an EMT. In patients found collapsed on hot summer streets or trapped in buildings without water. He knelt beside her and unscrewed his flask, the one he always kept filled and clipped to his belt. It was a habit from his old life. When being prepared could mean the difference between saving someone or watching them die. Out here in space, working cargo runs between stations, he had kept the habit. Water was life, whether you were on Earth or floating in the black between stars. "Small sips," he told her, lifting her head carefully. Her skull was light in his hand, fragile as a bird's. "Take it slow." She drank, and he watched her eyes focus a bit more with each swallow. Good. She was young. Her body could still recover if he got fluids into her fast enough. He let her drink for a few seconds, then pulled the flask back. "Too much too fast would make her sick. More," she whispered. Her voice was like wind through grass, barely there. "In a minute," Daniel said. "Let your body adjust first." He was aware of the crowd around them, the huge aliens who had been laughing before he arrived. They were quiet now, watching him with expressions he could not quite read. Confusion, maybe, or curiosity about why another small species would interfere in their entertainment. Daniel did not care what they thought. He had stopped caring about bullies a long time ago, back in the emergency rooms and accident scenes where he had learned that cruelty was the same everywhere. It did not matter if the bully was human or alien, big or small. The response was the same. You helped the victim and you did not back down. He gave the girl another drink, watching her color improve slightly. Her wings twitched against her back, a good sign. Neurological function was returning. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Lyra," she managed. "I'm Daniel." "You're going to be okay, Lyra. Just stay with me." A shadow fell over them both. Daniel looked up into the face of the biggest alien in the group, the one with gray skin and horns like a ram. The creature was easily 3 times Daniel's mass, built like a tank with legs. Its eyes were small and mean, and its mouth twisted into something between a smile and a snarl. "That's my water dispenser, human," the alien said. Its voice was deep enough to vibrate in Daniel's chest. "You got no right to be here." "Public fountain," Daniel replied calmly. He did not stand up, did not stop supporting Lyra's head, "which means everyone has a right to be here." "I claimed it." The alien leaned down, bringing its face closer. Daniel could smell its breath, hot and sour. "You understand claiming? My territory, my rules." "I understand you were watching someone die and doing nothing about it," Daniel said. He kept his voice level, conversational even. "Where I come from, we call that murder." The word landed like a punch. The big alien straightened up, its expression shifting from amusement to anger. Around them, the crowd grew larger. Other species stopped to watch, keeping a safe distance but clearly interested in what was happening. "Murder." The alien laughed, but there was an edge to it now. "She's just some weak species. Weak things die in the outer stations. That's nature. That's not nature, Daniel said. That's you being a piece of shit. He said it in English, but the translator chips that most species wore caught the meaning just fine. The insult was clear enough. The crowd stirred, whispers spreading through the gathered aliens. The big creature's face darkened with rage. You want to die with her, human? It growled. Daniel finally stood up slowly and deliberately. He placed his flask down next to Lyra, making sure she could reach it if needed. Then he turned to face the alien fully. The height difference was absurd. The top of Daniel's head barely reached the creature's chest. He looked like a child standing before an adult, like a mouse confronting a bear. But Daniel had learned something in his years on Earth, something that applied just as well out here among the stars. Size mattered in a fight, sure. Strength mattered. But there were other things that mattered more. Will mattered. The willingness to stand your ground even when you knew you might lose. The refusal to let fear control your choices. And sometimes, just sometimes, that was enough to make the other guy blink first. I'm not going to fight you, Daniel said quietly. But I'm not moving either. This girl needs water and I'm going to make sure she gets it. You can stand here and watch or you can walk away. Your choice. The big alien stared at him. Its companions had gone silent, watching their leader to see what he would do. The crowd pressed closer, dozens of eyes fixed on the confrontation. Do you know what I am, human? The alien asked. Its voice had dropped lower, more dangerous. I am Hrangtal. We crush species like yours for sport. I know what you are, Daniel said. Do you know what I am? The alien hesitated. Something flickered in its small eyes. Uncertainty. You're human, it said, but there was a question in the words now. That's right, Daniel said. I'm human. From Earth, the crowd's whisper grew louder. Daniel heard the word repeated in different languages, different voices. Earth. Human. Deathworlder. The words spread through the gathered aliens like ripples on water. The big alien took a step back. Just one step, but it was enough. Its expression had changed from anger to something else. Not quite fear, but close. Caution, maybe. The kind of caution you showed when you suddenly realized you might have made a mistake. This isn't worth my time, the alien said loudly, trying to save face. Come on, we have better places to be. Its companions followed as it walked away, though Daniel noticed several of them glancing back over their shoulders. The crowd began to disperse, though many remained, watching from a distance. Daniel knelt back down beside Lyra and picked up his flask. Her eyes were open wide now, staring at him with an expression of shock and confusion. Why did they leave? She asked. You are smaller than them, weaker. Why did they fear you? Daniel helped her take another drink before answering. I don't know if they feared me, he said. But they weren't sure enough to find out. Sometimes that's all you need. Lyra touched his arm with one delicate hand. You saved my life. Not yet, Daniel said with a small smile. Let's get you to the medical bay first. Then we can talk about life-saving. The medical bay was 3 levels down from the fountain, and Daniel half-carried Lyra the entire way. She protested weakly that she could walk, but her legs kept giving out every few steps. By the time they reached the entrance, she had stopped arguing and just let him support her weight. She was so light it barely registered, like carrying a large backpack instead of a person. The medical facility was busy as always. Waypoint 7 serviced thousands of travelers every day, and injuries were common. The waiting area held at least 30 different species, some bleeding, some groaning, some just sitting in silence. The air smelled of disinfectant and something else, something organic that Daniel could not identify. Different species meant different biology, and different biology meant different smells when things went wrong. Daniel carried Lyra past the waiting area toward the intake desk. A Vreldnik's nurse looked up from her terminal, her 3 eyes focusing on them with obvious disinterest. Waiting area is behind you, she said in flat galactic common. Take a number. She's severely dehydrated, Daniel said. Mothran species. She needs immediate IV fluids or her organs will fail. The nurse's eyes flicked to Lyra, then back to her screen. Waiting area. We will call her when a bed opens up. She might not have that long. Then she should have maintained proper hydration. The nurse's tone never changed, as if she was reading from a script she had memorized years ago. Station regulations require all travelers to carry sufficient supplies for their journey. Failure to plan is not a medical emergency. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. He had dealt with bureaucracy before back on Earth, but it never stopped making him angry. Rules and regulations were fine when they helped people. When they got in the way of saving lives, they were just obstacles to work around. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his credit chip, placing it on the desk. How much for immediate treatment? The nurse's demeanor changed instantly. Her eyes brightened and she sat up straighter. Priority care is 200 credits. That includes initial stabilization and up to 2 hours of treatment. 200 credits was half of what Daniel had earned on his last cargo run. It was supposed to cover his food and supplies for the next 3 weeks. But looking down at Lyra, seeing her barely conscious and struggling to breathe, he did not hesitate. "Do it," he said. The nurse processed the payment and called for an orderly. Within minutes, Lyra was on a medical bed being wheeled into the treatment area. Daniel followed, ignoring the nurse's protests about non-family members in restricted areas. He had learned that if you walked with enough confidence, people usually assumed you had permission to be wherever you were. The treatment room was small but clean. A Kreloth doctor arrived, her 6 limbs moving in practice coordination as she examined Lyra. She hooked up monitoring equipment, inserted an IV line into Lyra's arm, and adjusted the flow of fluids. Her movements were efficient and professional, and Daniel felt some of his tension ease. Lyra was in good hands now. "She will recover," the doctor said after a few minutes. "You brought her in time. Another hour and we would be looking at kidney failure." She turned to Daniel, her large eyes curious. "You are human, yes?" "Yes. You paid for her treatment." "Is she your family?" "No. I just met her today." The doctor's head tilted in a gesture that might have been confusion. "But you spent significant credits on her care. Your species must place high value on strangers." Daniel shrugged. "Where I'm from, we help people who need it. It's not complicated." "It is very complicated," the doctor said quietly. She looked at him for a long moment as if trying to understand something that did not quite make sense. "Most species in the galaxy do not think this way. Resources are limited. Credits are earned through labor. Spending them on strangers is seen as foolish. Then most species are wrong," Daniel said simply. The doctor made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sigh. "Perhaps. Or perhaps humans are the strange ones." She checked Lyra's monitors again and nodded with satisfaction. "She needs rest and continued hydration. I will keep her here for 6 hours, then she can continue her journey. You may wait if you wish." Daniel pulled up a chair and sat down. He was tired from his cargo run, and he had a dozen things he should be doing to prepare for the next one, but he was not going to leave until he knew Lyra was okay. Lyra stirred after about an hour, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around in confusion until she saw Daniel sitting beside her bed. Her face relaxed and something that might have been a smile crossed her features. "You stayed," she said. "I wanted to make sure you were all right. The doctor told me you paid for my treatment." Lyra's voice was stronger now. "The fluids already doing their work?" "That was very expensive." "I have no way to pay you back. I don't want you to pay me back, but I must. It is only right. You saved my life twice now, first from the Hrangatal, then from my own body's failure. I owe you a debt I cannot repay." Daniel leaned forward in his chair. "Lyra, listen to me. You don't owe me anything. I helped you because you needed help. That's all. Back on my planet we have a saying, 'Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.' It means you treat people the way you want to be treated. If I was dying of thirst, I would want someone to give me water. So when I see someone else dying of thirst, I give them water. It's simple." Lyra stared at him with her compound eyes, and he saw them shimmer with moisture. He was not sure if Mothrin could cry, but it looked close. "Your planet must be very different from the rest of the galaxy." "Maybe," Daniel admitted. "Or maybe we're just too stubborn to accept that things have to be cruel. Humans have this problem where we see something broken, and we immediately want to fix it, even when everyone tells us it can't be fixed. Even when fixing it costs us more than we should spend. We do it anyway." "That sounds exhausting," Lyra said, but there was warmth in her voice. "It really is," Daniel agreed with a tired smile. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the medical equipment beeping softly around them. Other patients came and went, wheeled past their room by orderlies and nurses. The station hummed with life beyond the walls, thousands of beings going about their business, most of them probably never thinking about the small Mothrin girl who had almost died today. But Daniel thought about it. He thought about how close she had come to being just another statistic, another forgotten casualty of a system that valued strength over kindness. He thought about the Rangatal bullies, laughing while someone died at their feet. He thought about the security officers who had ignored her plea for help. He thought about the hundreds of travelers who had walked past without stopping, and he thought about how easy it had been to change that outcome. One flask of water, one decision to give a damn about a stranger. That was all it took to save a life. Maybe the galaxy thought humans were strange for helping people they did not know. Maybe they were right. But if being strange meant fewer people died alone on cold station floors, then Daniel was fine with being strange. Word traveled fast on Waypoint 7. By the time Lyra was released from the medical bay, the story of what had happened at the water fountain had spread through 3 sectors. Daniel did not know about it at first. He was too busy helping Lyra get to her transport gate, carrying her small pack and making sure she had enough credits for food and water during the rest of her journey. He had transferred 50 credits to her account, waving away her protests with the same patience he had shown everything else. "Take it," he had said firmly, "and when you get to the colony, send a message so I know you made it safe. That's all I ask." Lyra had agreed, though tears ran down her face as she thanked him over and over. She boarded her transport with shaking hands, turning back one last time to look at the human who had saved her life. Daniel waved, waited until the doors closed, then headed back toward the cargo docks where his ship was berthed. He made it halfway there before he started noticing the stairs. It began with a group of small, furry aliens near a food vendor. They watched him walk past, their heads turning to track his movement. One of them said something to the others, and they all looked at him with wide eyes. Daniel ignored it. Staring was normal when you were human. His species was still relatively new to the galactic community, and most aliens had never seen one in person. But then it happened again. A cluster of insectoid traders stopped their conversation to watch him pass. A merchant closing up her stall paused with her hands full of merchandise, her gaze fixed on him. A security officer actually nodded respectfully as Daniel walked by, something that had never happened before. Something was different. Something had changed. Daniel ducked into a food court and ordered a meal from an automated kiosk. The dining area was crowded, and he found an empty seat at a long communal table. He had just started eating when someone slid into the seat across from him. Daniel looked up and saw a Kreelath, the same species as the doctor who had treated Lyra. This one was older, with patterns on his carapace that suggested high status. "You are the human," the Kreelath said. It was not a question. "I'm a human," Daniel corrected. "There are a few billion of us. But you are the one who faced down Grant and his crew. The one who gave water to the Mothran girl." Daniel set down his fork. "How do you know about that?" "Everyone knows about it. The story is spreading through the station communication networks." The Kreelath tapped a device on his wrist, and a holographic display appeared above the table. Daniel saw text scrolling past in multiple languages. He could not read most of them, but his translator chip picked up keywords. Human, water, Rangtal, deathworlder. "I don't understand," Daniel said. "I helped someone who needed help." "That's not news." "But it is," the Kreelath insisted. "You do not understand how rare what you did is. Out here in the outer stations, people die every day because no one helps them. Resources are precious. Credits are earned through hard work. To spend them on a stranger, to risk confrontation with dangerous species for someone you do not know, that is unheard of." "It shouldn't be unheard of. It should be normal." The Kreelath made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "You are very young, human. The galaxy has been civilized for 10,000 years. In all that time, most species have learned that survival means protecting your own and ignoring others. Pack loyalty, tribal bonds, these are common. But what you showed today, that is different. You extended pack protection to someone who is not your pack. You treated a stranger as if she was family." Daniel thought about that for a moment. He thought about the way humans bonded with stray animals, with injured wildlife, with anyone or anything that seemed to need help. He thought about the stories of people jumping into rivers to save drowning strangers, running into burning buildings to rescue neighbors they had never met, giving blood to anonymous patients at hospitals. Those things had always seemed normal to him, just basic human decency. But maybe they were not normal out here. Maybe humans were the strange ones after all. "My species went through some hard times," Daniel said slowly. "We almost destroyed ourselves a few times. Wars, diseases, disasters. We learned that we survive better when we help each other. Even strangers. Especially strangers, because today's stranger might be tomorrow's ally. Or tomorrow's enemy, the Krelath pointed out. Maybe. But we decided to take that risk. We decided that building trust was worth more than protecting resources. The Krelath studied him with compound eyes that reflected the lights of the food court. Your species is only 2 generations into galactic society. You have not yet learned how things work out here. Give it time. You will become like the rest of us, cautious and self-protective. You will learn to ignore the suffering of others. I don't think we will, Daniel said quietly. Humans are stubborn that way. We see something wrong and we try to fix it. Even when it's not our problem. Even when it costs us. It's just how we're built. The Krelath stood up, preparing to leave. But he paused and looked down at Daniel with something that might have been respect. The galaxy is watching your species with great interest, human. Some species hope you will change the way things work out here. Others fear exactly that. Be careful. What you did today made you famous, but fame cuts both ways. He walked away before Daniel could ask what he meant. Daniel sat alone at the table, his food growing cold, thinking about the strange turn his day had taken. All he had done was share his water. All he had done was stand up to some bullies. In his mind, those were small things, barely worth mentioning. But apparently out here, they were revolutionary. His communication device buzzed. Daniel pulled it out and saw a message from an unknown sender. He opened it carefully, wary of spam or scams. But the message was simple and genuine. My name is Yuri. I am Talon, blue skin, 4 arms. I was in the crowd today. I watched you give water to the Mothran. I watched you face the Hrangtal. I want you to know that you inspired me. Tomorrow I will be braver. Tomorrow I will help someone who needs it. Thank you for showing me that is possible. Daniel stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed a response. You don't need to thank me. Just help people when you can. That's enough. More messages came in over the next hour. Different species, different languages, but the same basic message repeated over and over. You showed me something today. You changed something in me. I will try to be more like you. Daniel did not know how to feel about that. He was just a cargo hauler. Just a guy trying to make a living in the outer stations. He was not a hero or a leader or anyone special. He was just someone who helped when helping was needed. But maybe that was enough. Maybe one person helping one stranger could start something bigger. Maybe stubborn human kindness could spread like a virus, through the cold calculation of galactic society. Maybe saving one girl from dying of thirst could change more than just one life. Daniel finished his meal and headed back to his ship. He had cargo to haul and bills to pay. Life went on, regardless of what happened today. But as he walked through the station corridors, he noticed something different. People were watching him, yes, but they were also watching each other. He saw a large alien help a smaller one reach a high shelf. He saw someone share their meal with a hungry traveler. He saw acts of kindness, small and uncertain, like flowers trying to grow in concrete. It was a start. 3 days after the incident at the water fountain, Daniel was loading cargo containers onto his ship when his communication device started receiving alerts. Not the occasional message he had been getting from strangers thanking him, but dozens of notifications all at once. Each one marked urgent. He wiped the grease from his hands and checked the screen. The first message was from his employer, a shipping company based in the core systems. Call immediately. Important contract opportunity. The second was from a news network. Request interview regarding Waypoint 7 incident. The third was from someone claiming to be a representative of the Galactic Trade Council. Formal meeting requested to discuss human integration policies. Daniel scrolled through more messages, his confusion growing with each one. Interview requests, job offers, invitations to speak at conferences, even a few marriage proposals from species he had never heard of. His communication device had essentially exploded overnight. He called his employer first. The manager of Reldnix named Callow answered immediately. Ortega. Good. We need to talk about your new contract. What new contract? Daniel asked. The one where you become our official representative for the Outer Rim territories. Triple your current salary, better ship, full benefits package. We want to capitalize on your reputation. My reputation? Callow made an exasperated sound. Have you not been following the galactic networks? You are famous, Ortega, the human who stood up to Hrangtal bullies, the deathworlder with a heart. Every species in 3 sectors is talking about you. Daniel felt his stomach sink. I just helped someone. That's all. That is not all, Callow said firmly. You became a symbol. And symbols are valuable. Our company wants to be associated with that value. So do we have a deal? Daniel thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No. The silence on the other end lasted longer. No, I'm a cargo hauler. I move boxes from one place to another. I'm not interested in being anyone's symbol or representative. I just want to do my job. You are making a mistake, Ortega. This kind of opportunity only comes once. Then I'll live with the mistake, Daniel said and ended the call. The news network was easier to dismiss. Daniel sent a brief message declining the interview and blocked further requests. The Galactic Trade Council was harder. They were technically not asking. They were informing him that his presence was required at a formal hearing about human behavior in neutral territory. Daniel forwarded that message to Earth's diplomatic corps and let them handle it. He was about to turn his device off entirely when one more message came through. This one was different from the others. It was from Lyra. Daniel, I reached the colony safely. Thank you for everything. But I need to tell you something. The story of what you did is spread here too. My family knows what happened. The whole colony knows. They are calling you the human who saves strangers. They want to meet you. They want to thank you properly. Daniel smiled at that message. Unlike all the others, it felt genuine and personal. He started to type a response when his ship's proximity alarm went off. Someone was approaching his docking bay. He looked up and saw a group of figures walking toward him. At first, he thought they might be station security, but their uniforms were wrong. As they got closer, he recognized the gray skin and horns. Hrangital, 3 of them. And leading the group was Grunt, the bully from the water fountain. Daniel's hand moved instinctively to his belt where he kept a stun baton for emergencies. But he did not draw it, not yet. He stood his ground and waited as the Hrangtal approached. Grunt stopped a few meters away. His expression was difficult to read, but it was not the same sneering arrogance from before. He looked uncomfortable, maybe even embarrassed. Human, Grunt said. His voice was quieter than Daniel remembered. Less booming. Grunt, Daniel replied evenly. I came to talk. I'm listening. Grunt shifted his weight from foot to foot, a gesture that looked strange on someone so large. His companion stood behind him, equally uncomfortable. What you did at the fountain, that has caused problems for me. What kind of problems? Reputation problems. Other crews are saying I backed down from a human. They are saying I am weak, cowardly. Grunt's hands clenched into fists. I am not weak. I never said you were. But you made me look weak. You stood in front of me and I walked away. The whole station saw it. Now people think I fear humans. Daniel considered his response carefully. He could feel the tension in the air, the possibility of violence just one wrong word away. But he had meant what he told the Kreelath in the food court. Humans were stubborn about fixing broken things, even when the broken thing was a relationship with someone who wanted to hurt you. You don't fear humans, Daniel said slowly. You were smart. You realized that fighting me would not gain you anything. Even if you won, which you probably would have, you would have started something bigger. A conflict between species? That's not cowardice. That's strategy. Grunt tilted his head considering this. Strategy? Sure, look, I know about your species. Hrangtal are soldiers and mercenaries. You understand tactics and risk assessment. Fighting me over a water fountain would have been a tactical mistake, regardless of the outcome. You recognized that and withdrew. That's the thinking of a professional, not a coward. It was not entirely true, but it was true enough. And more importantly, it gave Grunt a way to save face without having to actually fight. Daniel had learned this trick back on Earth, dealing with aggressive patients or angry family members in the emergency room. Give people a way out that lets them keep their dignity and they will usually take it. Grunt seemed to relax slightly. His fists unclenched. You think I made a smart choice? I think you made the only choice that made sense. You might not like me, and that's fine, but starting a war between our species over some spilled water would have been stupid. You're not stupid, the other 2 Hrangtal whispered to each other behind Grunt. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a voice rougher than Grunt's. The human speaks truth. We were hired for security work in the core systems. If we had fought a human and caused an incident, we would have lost that contract. The risk was too high. Grunt nodded slowly. Yes, the risk was too high. He looked at Daniel with his small eyes and something like grudging respect appeared there. You are clever, human. You gave me what I wanted without making me ask for it. I gave you the truth, Daniel corrected. What you do with it is your choice. Grant was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached up and touched his horns in a gesture Daniel did not recognize. My honor is satisfied. We have no further quarrel. We never had one as far as I'm concerned, Daniel said. I just wanted to help someone who needed help. You were in the way, that's all. The three Hrangtal turned and walked away without another word. Daniel watched them go, feeling the adrenaline slowly drain from his system. His hands were shaking slightly, and he realized how close that had been to going very badly. His communication device buzzed again. Another message from Lyra. I forgot to tell you. The colony is on a planet called Haven's Rest. If you are ever in this sector, please visit. My family would love to meet you. And I would love to see you again. Daniel looked at the message, then at his ship, then at the station around him. His life had gotten very complicated in the last 3 days. He had become famous without wanting to be. He had turned down opportunities that most people would kill for. He had faced down bullies twice now, first at the fountain and just now at his ship, but he had also saved a life. He had inspired others to be kinder. He had shown that humans would help strangers even when it cost them something. And maybe, just maybe, he had started changing the way the galaxy thought about compassion and kindness. He typed a response to Lyra. Haven's Rest is 2 sectors away from my usual routes, but I'll try to make a detour sometime. Take care of yourself. Then he went back to loading cargo. He had a job to do, and being famous was not going to pay his bills. But as he worked, he found himself smiling. Maybe being a symbol was not so bad if it meant more people got helped. Maybe being the human who saved strangers was not the worst reputation to have. 6 months passed before Daniel made it to Haven's Rest. His work kept him busy in the core sectors, running cargo between stations and avoiding the flood of attention that came with being the human who saved strangers. The fame had faded somewhat as new stories replaced old ones, but he still got recognized occasionally. Usually it was fine. Sometimes people wanted to shake his hand or thank him. Once in a while, someone would challenge him, trying to prove that humans were not as tough as the stories claimed. Daniel avoided those confrontations when he could, but the memory of Lyra stayed with him. In quiet moments between cargo runs, he would think about the small Mothran girl who had almost died on that station floor. He wondered if she was happy in the colony. He wondered if she had found work, made friends, built a life. He wondered if she still remembered him, or if he had become just another story she told at dinner parties. When his route finally brought him within range of Haven's Rest, he sent a message asking if he could visit. Lyra's response came back within the hour, excited and welcoming. She sent coordinates for a landing pad near her family's home and promised to have a meal prepared. Haven's Rest was a beautiful planet, much more pleasant than the crowded stations Daniel was used to. The colony was small, maybe 3,000 people spread across a valley surrounded by gentle hills. The buildings were low and simple, built to blend with the landscape rather than dominate it. Gardens grew everywhere, filled with plants from a dozen different worlds. The air smelled clean and sweet. Lyra met him at the landing pad. She looked different than he remembered. Healthier, obviously, but also more confident. Her wings had regained their shimmer and her compound eyes were bright with happiness. She rushed forward and embraced him, her delicate arms wrapping around his waist. Daniel, you came. I was afraid you would be too busy. I promised I would try, Daniel said, returning the hug carefully. She was still so light and fragile in his arms. It's good to see you doing well. I am more than well. I am happy. Come, you must meet my family. She led him through winding paths between buildings, chattering excitedly about life in the colony. She had found work as a teacher, helping young Mothran children learn about galactic culture and history. Her family had established themselves as respected members of the community. Everything was good, everything was peaceful. But as they walked, Daniel noticed something odd. Other colonists were stopping to watch them pass. Different species, different builds, but all of them staring with expressions of curiosity and something else. Gratitude, maybe. Lyra's family home was larger than he expected, a sprawling structure built around a central garden. Her parents met him at the entrance, both of them elderly by Mothran standards, their wings pale and delicate with age. They greeted him in formal galactic common, their voices trembling with emotion. Daniel Ortega, Lyra's mother said, you saved our daughter's life. We can never repay that debt. "There is no debt," Daniel said, as he had said 100 times before. I was glad I could help, but Lyra's father shook his head. "You do not understand. Lyra is our only child. When she left to join us here, we feared every day that something would happen to her on the journey. When we heard she had collapsed on waypoint 7, that she had been denied water and left to die, we thought we had lost her forever. But then we heard about you," her mother continued, "about the human who shared his water, who faced down bullies to protect a stranger, who paid for her medical care with his own credits. You gave us back our daughter. How can we not owe you everything?" Daniel felt uncomfortable with this level of gratitude. He shifted his weight and looked around for something to change the subject. "You have a beautiful home." Lyra's father laughed, understanding the deflection but accepting it. "Come, we have prepared food. And there are others who want to meet you." The others turned out to be half the colony. The central garden had been set up for a celebration, with tables laden with food from multiple worlds and species. Daniel recognized maybe a dozen different aliens in the crowd, all of them watching him with that same expression of gratitude and curiosity. An elderly Tellan approached, his blue skin marked with age spots, his forearms moving in a gesture of respect. "I am Yuri. I sent you a message 6 months ago after what happened on the station." Daniel remembered. "You said you would try to be braver, try to help people." "I did more than try," Yuri said, his voice thick with emotion. "I started a volunteer organization here in the colony. We help new arrivals get settled. We provide food and water to those who need it. We make sure no one is left behind." He gestured to the crowd. "Many of these people are part of that organization. We call ourselves the Water Sharers after what you did for Lyra." Daniel looked around at the gathered aliens, seeing their faces clearly now. They were not just curious. They were looking at him like he was a hero, like he had started something important, and maybe he had without meaning to. "I am just one person," Daniel said quietly. "I shared my water one time." "But that one time changed everything," Lyra said, stepping up beside him. Word spread from waypoint 7 to other stations, other colonies. The story of the human who helped a stranger inspired others to do the same. Now there are water sharers organizations on 15 different worlds. Thousands of people helping thousands of others, all because you showed us it was possible. A younger Mothran child, barely more than a hatchling, approached Daniel shyly. She held out a small object, a carved wooden token in the shape of a water droplet. "This is for you," she said in a tiny voice. "Thank you for saving my teacher." Daniel took the token carefully, feeling its weight in his palm. It was simple and rough, obviously hand-carved by someone young, but it meant more than any of the formal offers or job opportunities he had received. This was genuine. This was real. The celebration lasted into the evening. Daniel ate food he could not identify, heard stories about the water sharers helping people across multiple worlds, and listened to aliens tell him how his simple act had inspired them to be better. It was overwhelming and humbling in equal measure. As the sun set and the colonists began to drift home, Lyra walked with Daniel back to his ship. They moved in comfortable silence, the way old friends do when words are not necessary. "Will you come back?" Lyra asked when they reached the landing pad. "If I can," Daniel promised. "My work takes me all over, but I'll try to pass through when possible." "That is enough," Lyra said. She hugged him again, tighter this time. "Thank you, Daniel. Not just for saving my life, but for showing me that the galaxy can be kind. I was raised to believe that only the strong survive out here, that helping strangers was foolish. You proved that wrong." Daniel thought about that as he prepared his ship for departure. He thought about the water sharers spreading across worlds, about the thousands of small acts of kindness happening because one person had shared his water. He thought about how humans were still new to the galactic community, still learning how things worked out here. But maybe things did not have to work the way they always had. Maybe humans could change the galaxy not through force or technology, but through simple, stubborn kindness. Maybe the willingness to help strangers, to give without expecting return, to protect the vulnerable even at personal cost. Maybe that was humanity's real strength. As his ship lifted off from Haven's Rest, Daniel looked down at the colony below. He could see the lights coming on in homes, families gathering for evening meals, lives being lived in peace and safety. And somewhere down there, the water sharers were probably planning their next project, figuring out who needed help and how to provide it. One flask of water, one decision to give a damn about a stranger. That was all it had taken to start something bigger than himself. Daniel smiled as he plotted his course to the next station. He was still just a cargo hauler, still just a guy moving boxes through space. But maybe that was enough. Maybe being ordinary and kind was the most extraordinary thing a person could be. His communication device buzzed with a new message. Another person thanking him, another story about the water sharers helping someone in need. Daniel read it, saved it with all the others, and turned his attention back to flying. The galaxy was a big place, and there were a lot of people who needed help. But there were also a lot of people willing to give it now. Inspired by one simple act on one crowded station, that was something worth celebrating. That was something worth continuing. Daniel checked his water flask, made sure it was full, and set his course for the stars. Somewhere out there, someone might need help. And if they did, he would be ready to share what he had, because that was what humans did. They helped. They shared. They protected strangers as if they were family. And maybe, just maybe, that would change the galaxy for the better.